as much as the frustrations are with the learning curve in Drupal, because I also maintain the same modules for WordPress. Um,
Oh, I didn't realize
and
that.
boy, does that make me love Drupal. It's like the WordPress. It's like there's kind of less of a learning curve, but there's less of a learning curve because there's less there to use. Like you very quickly reach the end of the runway, and you're like, I guess I'll just write my own sequel now.
Hey, John.
Hello.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
Fa- Fancy meeting you here.
Yes, exactly.
Cheers. You drinking anything fun?
Cheers. I have I have a Irish breakfast tea. It's an Assam tea. It's very black, almost coffee. Yourself?
Nice. Lime juice and ginger and
Perfection.
water, of course.
Works for. Is it Florida green?
Is it Florida grown? Is that what you said?
Is it Florida that you're having your lime juice in? I mean,
Yes. Yep. You're at home in Florida. I don't know.
sense.
I find the lime juice kind of refreshing.
Makes sense.
Takes the heat out of the day.
Exactly.
Well, so I don't know. You and I have met before at I think a couple of GovCons or maybe a GovCon in a camp somewhere along the line, and I don't know. One of the things when I talk with people that I like to hear are like, how did you get started in Drupal? Like, what's your Drupal story? Because I've found that like everybody has a completely different story. Like, no two Drupal stories are alike.
Absolutely.
How'd you get
Absolutely.
started?
Fair enough. Yeah, I was enticed by views, I'm gonna say. So I came in as a photographer originally. I was in
Oh, wow.
a university's public relations department. Uh, And I came in as a photographer, but I was the kid, was the transition from print to web. So if you're the kid that knows how computers work, very quickly you're also doing layout on the web, and very quickly you're taking care of the website, and eventually you change your title to developer. So I'm now taking care of, for instance, website, but I'm very much just learning the ropes of web development. And I don't know the slightest thing about SQL joins and things like that. And I get to go to DrupalCon in Chicago with a bunch of our developers who are thinking about moving the university to Drupal. And there I'm watching this presentation of content types and views, and it's just blowing my mind that there's this thing that has a site builder interface for complex database operations. And so I come home and move that, and all of a sudden I'm building complicated web applications and things like that. And so, 10, 15 years later, I know a lot more than I did then, but views. It was views that lured me in the beginning. So, what about yourself?
Wow, very cool. Well, yeah, I actually got my start at a university as well. I was working for Syracuse University, doing some website development, sort of non-programming based website development for the School of Education at Syracuse University. And they had a group of like students that were doing like work study that would build stuff that professors needed or that groups within the School of Education needed. I think they were called the Living School Book. It was a pretty cool program. And they had been doing a lot of like custom code for the group that I was working with. And they built some pretty complicated things. And I was like just learning PHP at the time. Like wasn't my job to actually do the programming, but I started getting into it because I had taken other programming courses in college and things like that. But they were looking at getting shut down, like some of their funding was running out or whatever. And one of the students there said, there's this thing you might want to think about. It's called Drupal, and it was Drupal 4 at that point. So this was like back, I think, 2002. Um, and I looked at it, I thought, well, that's kind of neat, but it was kind of clunky and plain, and like I didn't see enough of the potential in it at the time. Um, and he said, well, he said there's a new version coming out. Five's going to be coming out at some point, and then it'll be really good. So like I kind of moved away from it for I don't know half a year, 9 months, something like that. And then when five came out, I took a look at it. I was like, oh, this has actually matured quite a bit, and looks like it would meet some of our needs. So I started developing on that at the time, and so that was kind of my start to it. And by development, I meant like site building, not actually doing any custom coding for it. And when it came time to like custom code because I couldn't figure stuff out, I was hacking Drupal and doing things in
Mhm.
places and ways that I shouldn't be doing at the time. But thankfully, in the many years that have come since, I've changed my ways.
Right. Yep. The patching core is not something you want to be doing.
Yeah.
So, but you do patch core. I see you in the commit log all over the place, and a whole thicket of modules. And so take me from take me from playing with Drupal 5 to now having this stable of modules you maintain. Like what's this journey been?
Yeah, it's been kind of a long one. Mainly, I think when I started donating modules, contributing modules um, when I wanted to use them on other sites. So we work at Civic Actions now and have worked there for over a dozen years. And we have a lot of government, like, or mainly in the government space. And there were lots of times I would build something for one agency. And then when I go to get moved to a different government agency, I'd be like, oh, we need that exact same thing. But now I no longer have access to the private code base of the first
Hmm.
agency because security is an important thing. So lots of them lock down their Git repositories. So like it's like I wrote this, I know I've built this before. I don't really want to have to build it again. Um, and so I started at that point kind of like, all right, if I have to build it again, I'm never going to have to build it a third time if I contribute it. And thankfully, a lot of the agencies are very supportive of contributing back to Drupal. They realize that they've built on Drupal and gained a lot of advantage by using Drupal. So most of the agencies that I've worked that Civic Actions has partnered with, have been uh, very forthcoming and very supportive of us giving back. So, I'd say, all right, I'm going to build this thing that I've already built it for this other agency, but I can't get to. I'm going to build it again, but this time I'm going to build it as contrib. And so as I've gone along, I've used that going forward, and that allows me to one get the benefit of stuff that I've built in the past, and also not have to remember how I built it the first time because I'm getting older, and as the white hair sets in, I don't remember stuff as well. But it's like I think I remember building this, but where is it? Now I don't have to. I can just go to my module list and see what I've supported.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's nothing worse than running git blame and finding your own name.
oh
Oh
yeah,
no,
yeah.
I
I
built
I
this
did
broken
this.
thing. No memory
Yep,
of this.
that is a very
Uh,
true statement.
Fair enough.
How
Fair
about
enough.
you? You've got a couple of accessibility modules under your belt now.
Yeah,
How'd you get
yeah.
there?
Um, Mostly uh, having a big dumb idea, I would say, for mine. The smaller one, link purpose, it puts little icons on links. So we were using the external links module. Uh, I had sort of a growing list of feature requests, and we had a pile of patches. And um, at some point, it sort of became clear we were asking the module developers to do more than, it's not their job to work for us. So we built our own thing. But that's like a little JavaScript library. The big one's editorially, um, and that was, I think, sort of the definition of a big dumb idea. I was trying to accomplish a goal, basically. Like we have 2,000 some odd websites at Princeton I'm supposed to be keeping track of for accessibility, quality assurance, and I can review about 80 a year. So the math on that is just never going to work. If you look at the turnover rate, I'm losing ground as fast as I move. So I needed something I could automate and go out there. And I realized that most of the things I was doing was, as you say, you're writing the same module over and over again. I was writing the same email over and over again. Like this thing needs
Hmm,
alt text, this thing needs that.
right.
And most of the things I was flagging, I was staring at it and saying, I could write JavaScript. It could write this email for me. Um, so sort of that mindset of I have this idea, and then you do sort of the build versus buy, and there was no buy. We went looking for something out there, um, and I had identified a need, and there wasn't anything that met it. Like we wanted something really simple, user-friendly, non-technical, and there's tons of vendors in the accessibility space. But I went from vendor to vendor to vendor to vendor, and they were all building things for more technical people, for site overviews, site things like that. There wasn't anything that was like really simple and user-friendly that was just sort of validating for authors in a way that was mildly annoying, but not too annoying, except for one little project up at Toronto Metropolitan University where Adam Chabrick had written the Sally library, and he had the same idea I had. Uh, And so I talked to him for a while. I forked that, built it out, and had this little checker that was fast enough to run on load on every page eventually, without making the whole page grind to a halt. And I wrapped a Drupal module around it, and we open sourced it. And then so here I am. I'm a module maintainer now, and it was just sort of one of these. I had a very large idea and talked to my boss, and she was on board. So
That's awesome.
it is awesome, and it's just one of these interesting things where I'm my job changed then because I'm rather than writing emails now, I'm managing scripts essentially. Uh, and so every so often I'm sort of scratching my head. I'm like, am I doing what they hired me to do? But they hired me to accomplish a task, and I'm accomplishing the task better now than I was before, but I'm doing it in a way that's more fun. So
And there's thousands of you doing the on the job training thing because right, the feedback it gives is so great that
exactly,
it's like educating people as they are using it. So it's like you've
exactly.
also multiplied yourself a thousand times just to be sitting on all the editor's shoulders going, hey, I'll do that.
And they're so much more receptive when they come to me. If I reach out to them and say, "Wow, your site has problems," you have to word that very carefully. But when they email you and be like, "This thing keeps popping up in the corner telling me I have problems. It's really annoying me. Can you explain how to fix it?" I'm like, "Sure." I won't mention that's also me. You know. So, uh, yeah. So I think that was just sort of part of it. Is sometimes you just are able to do something that no one else is working on. Um,
Your
so
module, I mean, that module is amazing in terms of all it does and how easy it is to use. And I think one of the things that like blew me away, I saw one of your presentations at Drupal GovCon, and you went into like the why you built it the way you did, and
mm,
the explaining like how the interactions were and how to make them better.
mhm,
And it really hit me that you recognize your audience in a way
mm,
that most Drupal developers don't.
mm,
You had a really great understanding of your audience and sort of wove that into how the module behaved,
mm,
which was really impressive. And it like Drupal, we like the Drupal Association has the idea of ripple makers, the idea that
mm,
we create waves and we don't know who those waves are going to impact.
mhm.
But it was kind of funny because I came out of that presentation thinking, this is really amazing. You've done like UX design on a Drupal module uh, that could have just been very developer centric and things like that, and kind of like looking like uh, a Craigslist kind of design, but like yours worked out really nicely. And I took that. So the ripple that you created that you're probably not aware of is I took that back to heart on the next several
Hmm.
modules that I built. And I started getting people on Civic Actions design team to get involved with
Yes.
refining the module, making it better, making it more user friendly, even from like the admin screen, right, where
Yeah.
only two people might ever see it on a Drupal site, making that actually better and having that go through UX design. And then the ripple effect from that is that we just had a bunch of uh, Drupal design, well, UX people, not Drupal specific, go through this Drupal site builder course and get
Hmm.
certified site builders as a result of like pulling them into modules and things like that. So it's
That's
you created
fantastic.
quite a ripple there.
That's awesome.
So
That's
thank you
awesome.
for
And
that.
that's fantastic. I don't, because most of it is like you have always sort of the imposter syndrome of self-taught developers. But in other ways, it's like if that means you're cross-training from a different area of expertise, you're bringing something. Uh, and like I would not want to be without like the senior developer on our team who is a wizard at PHP. But he's going to come to me if he needs to do CSS. Uh, and just yeah, get spending that time with the users um, is huge. I had a coworker a few years back, and a lot of that came from him. Because to me, it was sort of mystical. The thing UX and designers, they would sort of go into their
Right.
room and emerge a few weeks later and be like, "This is a design," and be like, "I see that. Where'd that come from?" And so he made me take some UX classes, and it's just sort of the idea of like we're gonna just define what we want someone to accomplish with our thing. Um, and the idea that there's sort of a checklist of how to sort of take a real person and ask them to do it and not give them enough information to do it and just watch them struggle. Uh, and that 10 or 15 minutes of that can make huge difference to your module or whatever. but just taking the initiative to go out there and find someone that doesn't know how to use your thing and ask them to use your thing and to not
Right.
tell them how to use the thing. Uh, yeah, that made a huge difference in the rest of my career. Um, so it's cool to hear that that's spreading.
Very
But
much so.
it makes a huge difference. There's some things out there that are incredibly powerful, but they're not user friendly, and so they just they don't they don't create good content, essentially. If you put too much cognitive load on the content author, they're going to be so distracted by the interface that they're not going to write as well. So,
Right.
yeah.
Were you always in, like, where did the passion for accessibility come from? Was that because of the job you had, or did your passion lead you to that job?
I'm going to say the job. It,
Okay.
it, is partly, I always sort of feel like you should be proud of your work, I think. Kind of, you should care about the quality of your work. And so when I was in the public relations office, we would review departmental websites before launch and make sure that they were sort of up to university standards. And there was a checklist for that. And over time, that started to include accessibility things. And so I was starting to check for things and test for things. Um, but it kind of came out of that just sort of, um, I guess, not thinking of it as something special. It's like you should care if there are typos on your page, and you should care if there's broken links, and you should care if you have really great photography, and you should care that you have good descriptive alt text for the photography. Like to me, this was just all part of good. So it's one of these things where it's interesting because I'm very much accessibility is all over my title, and it's what I do, and it's what I test, and it's what I remediate. But in my mind, it's just sort of it's just doing good work. Uh, and that's kind of I mean, that's also where I try to drive it towards. That's sort of part of why I do the modules I do is I kind of think we don't um, you don't find people who are passionate about spelling, let's say. Uh, and then like when someone makes spelling mistakes, they don't show up with their favorite dictionary and be like, let's have dictionary class. And I feel like accessibility is sort of still in that place where it's new and it's difficult, but it's kind of new and difficult because the tools make it difficult. And I feel like success for accessibility is going to look like people talking about accessibility less. Um, like the more, if you have spell check in place, we stop talking about spelling. And if you have a broken link checker, you stop worrying as much about broken links. Like it just becomes part of your workflow that like, oh, I haven't filled out the alt text and I should do it in this way that I've learned. And I need good heading structure, but I don't have to know that I'm making good heading structure because the tool only gives me good options. Like that kind of thing where a workflow that supports and guides people into accessibility means they don't necessarily need to know the word accessibility to be making accessible content. So that's my weird passion.
Hmm.
My weird passion is to work myself out of a job. But not until after I retire.
Yeah, yeah.
So what about
You're on
yourself?
your way, I
Because
think.
exactly, you have this alt text validator. You just published this module that
Yeah, yeah.
crawls, I think, crawls through all the nodes on a website, collects images and alts. And tell me about this. Where did this come from? What's this
Yeah,
do?
so, well, so this came from, uh, government trying to make their sites better by
Mhm.
saying, hey, we've got, in some cases, thousands and thousands of images in our content that may not have alt text, may have really bad alt text, things like that. And, again, wanting to only build it one time rather than build it a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different times. Came up with the idea of a module that would, one, crawl the entire site, find every image within content. So it wouldn't be looking for decorative stuff that's not in the actual like nodes or terms or anything like that. So it'll actually crawl all the content, find images wherever they live, and surface their alt text, right? Just in
Mhm.
a report, just so you could start auditing. But then applied the idea of like rules. Well, rules are, what rules should be applied to alt text, and there's, like very easy ones to say, like, hey, this alt text shouldn't contain the file name of
Mhm.
the image because that's really annoying to listen to. And so, all right, we got to have a rule that checks for that.
Mhm.
If you've got a site where editors are fond of saying photo of,
Mhm.
and typing out what the photo is actually of, that also gets annoying to listen to. So, do we want rules that could warn or prevent that? And so the notion of, for the module is, you can have rules that give warnings just to give guidance, but will still let you save the node, or whatever the entity is that you're trying to save, or rules that will actually prevent. So like you might want, there's never a good case for when the alt ought to be the file name of the file. So we can, flat out prevent that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But the image of, there might be times when you actually want to
Mhm.
describe an image as an image of,
Mhm.
not too many. So we can do those as warnings, and just started building the module that way with a handful of other folks. And yeah, we just released it maybe a month ago now,
Mhm.
and it's uh, you know fun. I get into the accessibility. Like my history on the accessibility is back when I worked for Syracuse University. The project that I was on was the New York State Task Force for Quality Inclusive Schools.
Hmm.
So all of the focus of that, and it was kind of a really good, like almost Drupal model of, it was all the colleges in New York State, all the education colleges in New York State working together to improve their teaching of inclusion,
Hmm.
um, for anybody that's differently abled uh,
Mhm.
to learn. And it was a really cool approach because there's very few things that you can get colleges to work together on.
Hmm.
And it was really cool to see that play out. Like literally, there were, I think, 56 colleges, if I remember right, in New York State that were all working together towards this common goal. And so that kind of like raised my awareness of just, inclusion and the need for things, whether it's websites or anything else, to be accessible. Um, but then more recently, I've been a diabetic for over 50 years,
Hmm.
and my eyes are taking the brunt of that now. I get to
Hmm.
the point sometimes, some days, where my eyes literally will not function. I get bleeding, and like the blood just occludes any vision. So I'll go for a week or two without being able to see anything until we get the bleeding stopped.
Wow.
And so there are times when I need to rely on a screen reader, and it's those times when I'm like, and keyboard navigation, and
Mhm.
there's those times remind me of how like scary it is to try to interpret a website from that.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the ways that like stands out to me is, yes, the reading of the images is sometimes horrifying. Like especially if it's got a file name that is also like uh, sort of randomly generated numbers
Right.
and things that are just make it completely unlistenable. Um, so that's kind of like, I'm always in that mindset of, what is this page going to look like in 2 more years? What's this going to look like in 5 years? And what is it going to look like to me if I have? So it's selfish. What's I don't care
Well,
about everybody else. I want the site to make sense to me when I have to use it.
that's
Uh,
that's what I say in my classes is like if you're not disabled now, like unless you plan to die soon, like we're all going to live long enough to have disabilities. Um,
right.
yeah, take care of your future self. So,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so that's a transition for your job for sure. Learning that.
Yeah.
What's that like as a developer, learning to have weeks where you're not seeing.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, there's some interesting tools for reading code and writing code. I think the AI probably offers a more interesting future there because of it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's challenging as well. Uh, it makes me, it's kind of funny because I always thought, well, I can do this job from anywhere because I work remotely,
Right?
and I can do it in, any condition. I could be in a wheelchair and I can still work I can still
Right.
write code. And then, life's funny. It's like, yeah, you're blind. Can you still write code? And like that takes a while to get used to. And like just about the time I start getting comfortable with it, my eyes start clearing up, thankfully. And like I don't have to spend
Right.
too long, uh, in that state, but it
Right.
does make me like forever aware.
It's
Uh,
like the
but
terrible mercy to like be forced to learn, but to get breaks in the learning.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, it's ironic, and it's the kind of thing where like, yes, I've finally gotten used to all the zoom controls on
right.
whatever computer I'm using at the time, getting used to being able to zoom in so I can see text that's, this big
Right.
instead of tiny. And you just sort of start getting all the muscle memory for that. And then things clear up and you start using it less and less and less. And yeah,
Fascinating.
kind of an interesting process to go through.
Yeah, they all are. They all are. Wow. Yeah, we get that here there's chronic migraines that run in the family. So I have a family member that's like there are days she can see, but she can't look at a screen. And so it's the same sort of challenge of like how do you
Right,
continue on with your day? And if every day's the same, you can adapt. But when every day's
right.
different, it leaves you much more
Flexible.
a difficult place. Well, and that's something I,
Yeah.
I, I run into in the worlds of accessible development is you have these um, technical standards people are making for JavaScript widgets and their screen reader interaction patterns, and they're quite complex, and they're based on the user being an expert user of their screen reader, and uh, and it's just interesting having gone to a couple presentations from people like you that are like new at this. Uh, and it's they're just sort of like, yeah, I don't, you can't assume that people um, know all about this. So I've sort of circled in my career from like originally trying to implement all of these like ARIA patterns and things like that to trying to push back at things that are much harder than like toggle button, you know. Um,
Right.
whatever it looks like, whatever it looks like, simplifying the screen reader and keyboard interface as much as possible. Um, so wow.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, it's a heavy note. Um,
Sorry,
so
didn't mean to
what?
bring things down.
No, it's just we have to prepare it. I have a list of questions I want to ask you. And I'm like, I want to follow that with uh, something particularly light.
Yeah.
So, what about general tips to be um for people that are thinking about doing what we're doing and starting a module? Like, do you have things you learned along the way that you'd give as advice to someone that might be thinking about doing
Oh, that's
this thing for the first time?
that's a really good question. Um, yeah, I think like my advice is to just start building it. There's a lot of, and every time I talk to people about modules and things they want to build or things they built but they haven't contributed yet,
Hmm.
there's this idea of, well, I'm building this, I'd like to contribute it, but then it never gets contributed, right? Like they've built the module locally, they're using it on a site,
Hmm.
but it never gets contributed back because that takes an extra effort to like move it into the contrib space
Mm.
and make it available there. It might take some rewiring, rewriting of some code, depending on like how much forethought was put into developing it locally. And I've gotten to really where I just start developing it on Drupal.org from scratch, like
Hmm.
populating the issue queue, the features that are needed for an MVP. Um, Civic Actions, we refer to it as contrib first,
Mm.
because we recognize that like in human nature, right? You build something, well, I'll give it back later, and then you
Mhm.
move on to something else happens. Well, that happens in client work too, right? The client might be interested. Oh, yeah, it's great that we're building this. We should give that back, maybe. If you raise it to them, they might say, yeah, we should give that back. But then after it's built, they aren't typically comfortable with paying money to then have it contributed back,
Mhm.
right? Because it's an extra. It's like, well, we're already getting the benefit of this. Why pay extra now to like
Yeah.
do the work of moving it back and moving it
Right.
around, whatever? And it's just harder to sell them on that idea. And some you can
Huh.
convince them that there's benefits to doing it for like long-term maintenance, automatic updates, testing pipelines, things on the Drupal.org side. You can still make an argument for doing it, but it's a much smaller argument than if you said, I'm going to build this and it's automatically as part of my building this going to be public. And so I've taken that approach with a lot of modules. So the tip there is you just have to have a well-defined MVP. And then if there are other things that you'd like the module to do later or something that pops up into your head that's not really part of that MVP, but you think it might be a nice add-on, you create yourself a feature request for sort of future development that other people might pick up or you might pick up when you come back to it,
Mhm.
or whatever. Uh, but I've found that it just works a lot for the way I work, it works a lot more smoothly for me to just contrib first, build it in the contributed space from the beginning.
Mhm.
Uh, And I think there's a, other than like the time it takes to give it back, there's a lot of benefit to it too, because every little piece that you build is tied to an issue. And so it has that history of being tied to it, a pull request, of being tied to
Mhm.
an issue that's created where decisions might have been made, and there's all that that's present.
Hmm.
Where if you built it locally and you build it till it's a fully formed boy, and then you give Pinocchio back on
Right,
Drupal.org, it doesn't have that history. It starts out with one commit, the initial commit that has
right.
everything, and it starts as kind of a blank slate where there's no real documentation, just
Mhm.
from like the issue queue of where did this come from? Why do we have this now?
Mm.
Um, and any notes that might have led to building that. They might be
That's nice.
in a some kind of Confluence or Jira kind of thing back specific to that project, right? To the agency that you're building it for or whatever, but
Right.
it's not public. So I think there's just a lot of value to contrib first uh,
I like that.
in that approach. But I also realize not everybody's comfortable with that. My
You know,
goal is
I,
to help
I
make them
love
comfortable.
that. I love it. I tend to come in kind of halfway, um, where uh it sort of lives as a sandbox for a long time. Like I will build it on Drupal.org, but I'm very afraid to call it released until we've run it as like a private alpha or something for a few months and that kind of thing. But it's like it was there. Anybody could use it. I'm afraid to tag 1.0 until I've played with it for a long time.
Right.
But yeah, the just build it's tough at the beginning. Um, I gotta say, I mean, I don't know what the getting into the very beginning was like for you. But I know for me, it was very challenging to learn how to build a module. Um, just the documentation, the finding. If you don't come from an object-oriented world, I mean, I would open up these Drupal functions and I had classes and things, and I'd just be like, I don't even know what's going on in here. So that was a huge learning curve. I talk to people at conferences, and there's a lot of people on still to go up that curve to find it very intimidating. Um,
I I think
yeah.
that's true. I think it's sort of gotten worse over the years, just because things have become more complicated with the object. And it's harder to know, I think, for beginners to know what questions to ask. It's like,
Hmm.
like every module needs permissions. Every module needs,
Hmm.
an info file, just all the things. It needs so many parts to move. And now that we're not getting rid of, but like swapping out hooks for, that used to all live in the .module folder or in the .module .php file. Right now they're living elsewhere and in other places. And I think of trying to find the right term to even like ask Google
Right.
uh, is sometimes a challenge.
When I was starting out, I asked our senior developer. I pulled him aside. I'm like, how do I begin? Essentially, because I just assumed that there was something out there, some sort of like magical resource that he had, or like maybe his IDE was set up to answer these questions. And he shrugged and he said, "Go find modules that do something similar and look at what they did." And I just stared at him for the longest time, just like expecting there to be more. And he was like, "No, that's what you do." Um, and that's not like Drupal specific. Like that was just, but it was just sort of, uh, it was just very sort of mind-blowing advice for me that like there is no one behind the curtain. And even the developers I look at as the wizards are just leaning over each other's shoulders and seeing how someone else pulled that off and then copying and pasting. And then they know, as you say, like they know what to Google now because now they know, oh, there is a hook that does this thing that I wanted.
Right.
I was reading your source code this morning for your alt validators. One of the biggest challenges I have with editorially is just getting the like name and canonical URL of a thing. Like if it's a node, it's easy. But when you start mixing up nodes and views and taxonomies and custom entities, every time I write something after a while, it breaks. And so I'm always looking at people that found other ways to just find these things and look simpler. And yours looks very simple. And I'm looking at it and being like, is that because it's brilliant and the right way to do it, or is he just not run into the problems I've hit yet?
Maybe that.
Um, so, um, Yeah, getting started is curve. I will say that one of the great things about giving back is I feel like I end up delivering a better thing to my team. Because I'm only going to find so many bugs, and I'm only going to have so many ideas. And when I push something out into the contrib space, um, I had a feature request recently of someone, and they said, we did some UX testing on your module, and people were confused by this, and we think it would be better if you switched these things. And I'm just like, I just got free UX testing. This is amazing. And like it was clearly an improvement. After I switched as they recommend. I haven't put that out yet, but it's just like that's the kind of thing where I'm like I do spend time supporting people that I wouldn't otherwise spend for sure. But that's the payback I get in return is I have more people testing it, more people giving back.
Right.
So
And
uh,
and that's a hard thing to describe, like when you're trying to pitch
yeah,
to an agency that, we should give this back. It's hard to describe that we'll build it better, right? Because
right,
you do not really want to say that, I'm going to build it lesser quality if
right.
I'm not, right? But just by the fact that it doesn't have to work in all the various edge cases
hmm
makes it lesser quality, right? Because it's very niche, and if somebody changes your edge case a little bit, right? It doesn't
Yep.
work. And like you say that, the Drupal.org community, Drupal community, is the largest group of edge tester, edge case finders
Absolutely.
ever.
But we have
It's
this
like,
custom entity and it doesn't have a name. It's like, oh, great.
uh,
Um, yeah. Yeah. I will say though, as much as the frustrations are with the learning curve in Drupal, because I also maintain the same modules for WordPress. Um,
oh, I didn't realize
and
that.
boy, does that make me love Drupal. It's like the WordPress. It's like there's kind of less of a learning curve, but there's less of a learning curve because there's less there to use. Like you very quickly reach the end of the runway, and you're like, I guess I'll just write my own SQL now. Um, and there's not as nearly as much abstraction. I remember the sort of the form and render elements world in Drupal, where things are really abstracted out, and you're just like, hey, Drupal, make me a summary and details component, but you're just looking at like a PHP object where you're just like, oh, this is the attributes and this is the this and this is this, and there's no like HTML there to see or grasp. Um, like that was very frustrating to get started with. But once I got the hang of it, uh, it was so much faster to build out a complex interface where I'm just reusing the same template over and over again, and then Drupal handles the configuration for me, and then I go back to the WordPress world and I'm like, oh, I'm writing HTML again. Okay,
That's really interesting.
okay,
I didn't realize you were maintaining in two places because
yeah.
I've never had to look for it in WordPress.
And different
Um,
challenges. Because WordPress is Gutenberg and tiny MCE, and Drupal is CK editor with a little bit of Gutenberg.
that
Um,
sounds like like the next topic for your next talk, like that.
compare and
Like what is it?
contrast.
Well,
What do we
yeah, what
dislike
it's
about
like to,
everything?
I don't know. Like, I think there's a bunch of people that would bash either way, but like your insight
It,
into what it's like to maintain something or
it,
two different platforms is, I
it
think it's
gives you a
unique.
bigger appreciation for what each one does better because they both have their strengths and they both have their weaknesses, and so you grumble with more knowledge and you uh,
Yeah, I think
enjoy with more knowledge.
I think that'd be a cool talk.
But
I'd
yeah,
go to it.
fair enough.
'Cause I
Fair
think
enough.
that's pretty fast, because there aren't too many people that I run across that are like in both worlds
Right.
uh,
Well, it's also the
for
reason
that
I
long.
built my module so strangely. If you look at it editorially, it's not connected to CKEdit at all. Like it's giving you tips while you are live editing in CKEditor, but I'm not using any of CKEditor's um, built-in functionality, API. Like it's not a CKEditor plugin.
Right.
I'm just using mutation observers. I'm observing changes to the DOM on the page and reacting to it. Uh, and in some ways that was fantastically more difficult. Because I'm in some ways like it's kludges and hacks all the way down. But the reason for that difficulty is once I was finally done, I had a editor agnostic checker that I can just um, I was asked last week by a company to re-implement it for the WordPress classic editor, Tiny MCE4, and it took me a week, but it only took a week. to adapt this to run in a completely different environment with a different checker and or with a different editor. So yeah, it's one of these things where it's like there's always sort of that imposter syndrome when you're doing something different from what the directions say you should do. And you're like, am I doing it wrong?
Yeah.
But sometimes it means, I'm certainly taking the hard way in some ways, but then I have this tool that I can drop. I got it running in Squarespace. Like I can drop this in anywhere now and
Wow,
usually just change a whole bunch of parameters and it just works.
that's
Um,
huge.
but but at the same time, if anyone reads my code, they're gonna be like, what is this person doing? Why are they doing it this way?
I don't know. Now I want to go read your code because that's one of my goals for the alt text validation module. Right now, it only does it on save or on preview.
Right.
I wanted to actually do it in, on client side in real time kind of thing as they're editing it.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, we should
so
work
now I have to
together.
look at your code to see how you pulled that off because I haven't figured that out yet.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. A lot of mutation observers. So, um,
Developer you talked to early on who said, go find code that does something similar and look for it.
exactly.
He's right. I'm going to
Exactly.
do just that.
Exactly. And it's always changing. I have uh Adam Chadwick who wrote Sally, he went back and then he's rewritten all of his to be much more modern JavaScript, with all the requires and all of the isolated files and everything and so now I'm looking over his shoulder and being like, well, I want to rewrite mine to work like yours now again. And so it goes back and forth because I tend to run out in front and do these wild things in JavaScript and then he'll pull that back into his and then clean it up into nice proper JavaScript. And then I'll bring that back to mine and
Nice.
better together. So
That's very cool. That's a
there
good
you go.
development model. Peer programming, but only through open source
Yes,
observing or
peer
something.
programming through Slack.
Yep.
Um, exactly. Um, what do you have? Do you have is it all roses or do you have frustrating pet peeve kind of moments in there or
Yeah, I think I have like two. I've got my own pet peeve of when I built something for a site, and then now I'm on a project that doesn't use that anymore,
hmm
but I still have to support that. I still want to support that module
mm,
that I built several years ago, but I don't like my head's not in the game.
hmm
Um, and I don't have a usable site built that will allow me to like play with that, whatever it happens to be. Certain ones are easy because you just enable them and turn them on and like you can check stuff out, but to try to reproduce edge cases or whatever. Um, so like that's my pet peeve is that I lose sight of some of the things that I've built because I'm not actively using whatever it is for a given project that I'm on.
hmm
Um, Whenever possible, I try to use them on the project that I'm on because one, that was why I built them, but it helps me keep my head more in the game about like what does that thing do. So there's that pet peeve, which is a pet peeve of myself, right? I
hmm
feel not really imposter syndrome, but I'm down on myself for, oh, I've grown away from this module and I really need to show it some love again. Um, and I think that like I like the Drupal community a lot in terms of, there have been so many times where I have created an issue just to get it out of my head because like if I don't create the issue and write it down, it'll keep waking me up in the middle of the night to,
hmm
don't forget to write that issue down.
Yeah.
So like I've gotten to the point where I will at night, I'll kind of do a brain dump of like, oh, these are the issues that I want to get out of my head. I don't have to solve them. I just have to write them down.
Yeah.
And so I'll write them down. And then there's like more than a dozen times. It takes more than two hands to count the number of times where by morning somebody's had a PR in place
Huh.
already on that from far parts of the world,
Wow.
offering to contribute, and like that. That's awesome. That's like a gift. It's like this is great. So I think that that part of the community is great.
Hmm.
I think the edge finding network that finds just a problem here or there because it doesn't fit their exact the use case or the exact situation is awesome. I think what I've got now is probably like a growing pet peeve of people that are still submitting patches instead of merge requests.
Oh.
Uh, like one of the things that I did, James Sansbury did a talk, I think it was at Florida Drupal Camp. No, it might have been GovCon. I can't remember now. Where like he showed how to get Tugboat previews built for your module. So anytime there's a PR created against your module, it'll spin up a Tugboat preview environment where you can go play with that PR or merge request.
Hmm.
And like it's huge. It saved me so much time for like
Hmm.
testing stuff out. Um, and by the look of your face, it doesn't look like your module has that.
No,
I
we
will.
have that at work, at my day job. We have all that set
Huh?
up, but I didn't know I could set that up against the
I'll,
Drupal
I'll put in a PR, a pull
environment.
request for you. It's amazing. Like it saved me so much time. And so I've added it to like all the modules that I maintain because of that time savings. Um,
Interesting.
and it's especially useful now because like the site that I work on for my daytime is still a Drupal 10 site, but I want to make sure these modules are up to date with Drupal 11. So the Tugboat I can have load Drupal 11, and then I can test the Drupal 10 locally.
Right.
Uh, Things like that is huge. And
Huh.
so it bugs me when somebody submits a patch because the patch doesn't get pulled into a preview
I see.
environment that way.
I
So
see.
now it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
and they're on the other hand, like secretly not really knowing how to do a merge request. It's
yeah,
like
or they,
you gotta,
I don't know. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
But
you know. And
um,
like initially when they first sort of launched the merge request, I thought it was a little clunky myself. Maybe I've just gotten used to it, but it seemed like there were a couple things that were not quite connected right. Now they are,
yeah.
and it works so smoothly now. I mean, you can create pull requests just from your browser without even
Hmm.
like you can edit uh, because VS Code is baked right into GitLab now,
Hmm.
so you can edit you can edit code right in VS Code, and then again once you commit that to the pull request, you can immediately see the results of it.
Hmm.
So it's not ideal. It's not like you're editing it locally and seeing it super immediately, but you're editing it remotely and seeing it within the 5 or 10 minutes it takes to build the PR environment.
Nice.
So it's been very easy for me to do very small minor changes and stuff.
Interesting.
And so yeah, my pet peeve right now is no more patches.
No more
Let's move
patches.
on and do merge requests. But you know,
Fair
I
enough.
manage. How
Fair
about you?
enough.
What are your pet peeves for maintaining a uh, a module?
I get a little frustrated when I get a request from someone who's a better programmer than me, and it doesn't have any advice on how to do it.
Mm.
Like when I get requests from people that are like not like serious developers, I'm like very paternal about my module. Like, absolutely, let me see what I can do. But when I get something from like one of the wizards of the castle, uh, and they're like, you should do this really complicated thing, and I'll be like, I have no idea how to do that. Could you, then you hear the crickets. No, come back, come back. Um, so I mean, and the other thing is the thing that I'm totally guilty of myself is just like high emotion. Like sometimes, I'll be very frustrated and put in a frustrated something. And I try never to do that. But when I get one of these and someone's like very hot and bothered about this bug or whatever, and I think they sort of feel like they have to play it up to get my attention. And I'm kind of
Mm.
like, look at my issue queue. Like I fix everything within days. Like you're just let's not don't don't bring it down here, man.
Yeah, don't call my baby
So
ugly and be mean about it. Yeah.
exactly. It's like I do care. You don't have to make me care. I'm gonna get back. So I don't know. But mostly I've really enjoyed the ride. I mean it was um I always used to go to the conferences earlier in my career, and I would sit there watching the people up front that were module developers, and they were sort of it was like the Avengers. Like these were my heroes. And so just finding out that like it's just a lot of copying and pasting, and then you put your name on top with a nice sticker. And now like it's just sort of like I'm on the other side now, and so I don't. It really doesn't bother me because I sort of still am. Sort of confused and delighted that I have this thing. So I'll put up with a lot for that vanity. So
Understood. They've done a great job with it.
that's been great. It's been great. So let's
So do you
see.
have any luck with when you get somebody that's a good developer that's submitting a an issue to the issue queue? You said lots of times you ask and you get crickets. Have you ever had any good luck of saying, can you show me how to do this? Or
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And that's the I would say that's the rule, not the exception. Um, uh, Especially the Drupal Slack. There's a lot of as you say, the history is great on the module queue, but it's really nice just to be able to pop over to Slack and have a quick back and forth with someone and like be like, could you paste this line in and see if it fixes your problem? Okay, great. I'll go make a I'll go make a merge request. So that's been tremendous just to chat with people all over the world.
Oh, cool.
I really enjoyed that. So.
So if somebody puts an issue in your issue queue, you contact them directly through Drupal Slack.
I mean,
If
not as a rule, but like if it's the kind of thing where, if they've sort of uh let's say have a nebulous thing where like this is confusing or unclear, that's when I might head over to Slack and be like, hey, you got a minute? Because like I have these three ideas and like, and to be able
right,
to go bing 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 like back and forth a couple times, and then we might copy that back to the issue queue. You'll sometimes
right,
find comments in my issue queue that's like, here's the things we discussed on Slack, and we went through this one because you want that history.
right.
But I like being able to jump back and forth between the sort of slow and official communication and the chatter.
Yeah,
Um,
I like that. I need to rely on that more, especially for like things like that I can't easily reproduce. Or it's like,
yeah,
could I just shoulder surf while you show me this problem? And
that's huge.
I need to do that. Like I do that in the when I'm working for the agency kind of thing, but for
Mhm.
like module maintenance, I haven't tended to do that. So I like
Mm.
that idea to
It can save a
continue
lot of
that.
time, and people are very flattered. Usually, they're like, "Really? You're giving me attention?" I'm like, so no, it's great. It's great. So,
Cool, cool.
what's next? What where's your near future? What's your prognostication for where this is heading?
Uh, for module development heading,
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always seemed to have something in mind that I want to build. Um, and so yeah, building an archiver for data sets for DCAN right now,
Hmm.
uh, which is an interesting bunch of challenges there. But I think that's going to be a bit of fun. But yeah, it's kind of occupying the higher cycles of my brain. But uh, and of course AI, like that's on everybody's mind. Like how can we use AI to make things better? How can we like with alt text, with accessibility, how could we,
Hmm.
do some AI processes to improve things? And,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
how about you?
I keep plotting. I keep plotting in that direction. People keep wanting to do AI alt text, and it's like AI is very good at some things, and it's very good at describing what's in the image, but it doesn't know why you picked this image or what the context is necessarily. So, yeah, so I think I've shared on Slack with a
Yeah,
couple of people that it's my dream to take one of these AI alt things and have it instead of returning one alt, have it return three. And make the user pick the one they think is best, but picking puts their cursor into it to imply they're supposed to edit it. Like, I don't want to take the human out of the loop. I want to
right.
just, help the human with the hard part, which is getting started. But that's my sort of next big dumb idea. Um,
I
we're
don't think that's dumb at all. I think it's a great idea.
no, that's how you end up with a module. So you should build it. I also on my mind is what you're working on with your alt text validator is improving dashboards and site management and things like that. And that's the real challenge because I have this thing where I'm reporting back on any URL, let's say, that Drupal has and what issues are at that URL. But that could be a view, that could be a this, that could be that, could be that. So like my information that I'm storing in the database is not very well coupled with Drupal's internal entity system. So Views isn't really sure what to do with it. And so I have a lot of open feature requests from people that want to be able to filter issues to like nodes that they've authored that are published. And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have the entity references in place to do that. And I don't know how to do that. So that's sort of we're always learning. Like I've been
So
doing this for years and now I need to learn how to educate views about how to sort of translate between my system and views system. And that might involve completely rewriting my database tables and adding more columns and you know. So we're never done learning. I think that's my conclusion.
right. So is that kind of like a site improved, like baked into Drupal? Is that what you're?
Yeah, I mean that's really kind of how my dashboard works, but extremely light. these heavy, like Princeton, we pay for one of those enterprise crawling tools. Um, and it's much more robust because it's doing tons of server-side processing. It's doing the link checking, the spell checking. So I don't look at my tool as competing so much with that as I, I guess you could say like I have a nice electric drill in the back room and I also have a screwdriver, and so this is like the small tool that you can very quickly get some very simple tasks done for which the big tools are too much overhead. And then there's also people that just aren't uh, trained. It isn't their responsibility. But the idea that, if you're just someone that writes, and the only mistakes you can make are like heading order and links and images, being able to have this very light dashboard that is just your things where you don't need to be trained to use it. That was sort of the use case I was going for. Now, once that's all built, if I have all these references and connections, that's when I start sort of twiddling my fingers and dreaming because at that point now I can start talking to your module and pulling your information. I can start talking to link checker modules. At that point, I'm not going to build it necessarily, um, but the pieces would be in place for other people to start writing connectors where the various Drupal sort of admin dashboards would be able to show you how many accessibility issues are on this page, how many link issues are on this page. Like these modules could start talking to each other much more. So I
That
think that's
sounds
kind of my
awesome.
near future. Yeah, that's something I can pull off. It's one of these like we have dreams, and then we have dreams that we actually know how to do. And this is sort of the latter where I'm like, this is gonna be a lot of work, but I'm pretty sure I can pull this one off. So
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Very useful.
yeah, so you can build it first, and then I'll
And
just use your code.
hey,
So
you never know.
you never know.
Uh, but it sounds like you've already got half of it built. It's already doing stuff for you. So
We're getting there. We're getting there.
that's cool. Very cool.
So,
So as we round this out, there's one thing that I gotta know.
okay.
Every time I see, hit maybe JJ on
Yep.
Drupal.org, you have an icon of an avatar that has you. There we go.
Oh, didn't come
Looking
up
very
here.
proud.
Yes, I'm holding a shovel, looking very proud.
Are you
Now
proud of the shovel? Are you proud of something you did with the shovel? Like my mind just has to know.
this is a good place to end. Yeah. So I have a ridiculous garden. I have a small yard. I do not have a large yard, but there's not much grass left, and I have a large wildflower garden and lots of edibles and things like that. All kinds of pears and blueberries and
Oh, well.
berries and fruits. But about 15 some odd years ago, the alumni magazine from my university decided that they are mailing this magazine out to people full of people who've done amazing things in their life, and uh, that can be a little alienating. And they wanted to start a series on people who hadn't done anything amazing. And they knew me through working at the university and figured I was the person least likely to be offended by this idea. So they reached out and I could not stop laughing. I was like, you want to interview me and do a story about like someone who's just has a 9 to 5 job and a garden. Absolutely, I'm in. And so they sent out a professional photographer and she got a photo of me holding my shovel in my garden and this has amused me ever since. So that's
That's
that's the
right.
origin story of that of just being a normal person with a normal job and a normal life in the alumni magazine.
And
So
you weren't offended.
I thought it was hilarious. It still do.
Great.
So
Although in my head, I was like, oh, maybe he just buried somebody. Maybe that was he
yeah,
vanquished his enemies. And
exactly. No, I'd vanquished some weeds.
yeah, that works too.
So
That works too.
there.
Well, it's been great talking to you, John.
You as well, Steve. And I'll see you
Have
at
a
all the
great day.
conferences.
Yeah,
Cheers.
sounds good.